All right, good evening, everybody. My name's Glen. I'm the founder of the Happy Cow Milk Company, if you don't know. And thank you for joining us on our live Q&A session. We've had a lot of people, or a lot of new fans join us recently. So some people don't know the full story of Happy Cow. They're not sure what we do, and others have been along for the ride a long time. So I thought what we'll do tonight is we'll have a quick rundown of what we're doing. It'll take about 2 minutes, explain what Happy Cow Milk is, what we're trying to do, and we've had quite a few questions submitted, anything from animal welfare, emissions, through to the crowdfunding. We will be crowdfunding in the next week or two, and we can answer questions about that. We haven't yet put all the information out. It's just been checked and double checked and triple checked, and then we'll submit it to our crowd. Please feel free to just write in the comments on whether you're watching on YouTube, Facebook, or Twitter if the sound needs changing, or if you can't hear anything, let me know. And any questions that you come up with along the way, just stick them in the comments. They pop up in my feed here. Oh, we've got some already, and we'll go through them right at the end. So first of all, I will just share my screen. And this is a presentation I gave to the Food Fibre Agri-Tech Challenge, and we actually won 2 prizes and came away with $20,000, would you believe? So it just gives a quick overview of what Happy Cow is and why we're doing what we're doing. So bear with me for a sec. Right, so basically, this is a typical system. We're talking about global dairy farmers, not just in New Zealand, farmers all around the world. We basically have farmers who supply milk processors, who supply retailers, and they supply customers, and we're all familiar with that. The thing is that the retailers have all the power in this relationship, and they basically dictate how terms are done. So they're dictating the packaging that we buy milk in, and to a certain extent the processors do as well. But they also dictate the prices that farmers receive, and around the world farmers simply don't get paid enough money, and what that does is it causes farmers to become far more intensive and cut corners and basically try and make money the best they can. And the result is we've lost 50% of the dairy farmers around the world in the last 20 years, and they are the smaller dairy farmers. There's still more milk in the world than there ever has been. It's just they're produced by fewer farms. And at Happy Cow we want to solve that, because those family farms are really what is the future of dairy. It's really people get upset when I say that, but we don't want 30,000 cow dairy farms. We don't want 15,000 cow dairy farms, and we really want to. Well, I do. I want to encourage the person at the bottom to be able to have a go. So anyway, what we do is we enable farmers to bypass those milk processors and the retailers and go direct to the customers. And the Happy Cow story is really how we started doing that. And the principle behind it is that the farmers, instead of receiving around 60 cents a litre for their milk, they'll get $1.40 for their milk. So that's over 100% increase in revenue, and that enables farmers to put that revenue back into their farms, farm more sustainably, less intensively, and look after their animals better. So in order to get the things we want, which is reusable packaging and more ethical, sustainable dairy, we actually have to solve the money issue. And to solve the money issue, we have to kind of become more competitive than those retailers and processors, which is quite a feat. But the advantage that small farmers have now is it's changed. People really want to know who their farmer is, and the reason you're watching is partly because of this. And the success, or the reason Happy Cow is still going, is because we have a whole lot of local people who want to see this happen, and they like the authenticity. They like the trust and the transparency you get from your local farmer. They can't really hide anything. You can see them. They're down the road. Their kids go to the same school as you. It's the model of locals supplying locals, and farmers have been trying this. Everyone tries every year. People try, I included. And around New Zealand it happens quite a bit, and farmers trying to process their milk and get it to market, and it can get really complicated, and it's actually quite difficult to do profitably and successfully, as we all know. So what we've done in the last 2 years is develop this what we call our milk factory in a box that enables farmers to process milk quickly and efficiently. So it's easy to process milk. It's quite hard to do it quickly and efficiently. So our milk factory in a box uses reusable bulk containers. Those tanks you see hanging there, they're 100-litre tanks, and they're also pasteurizers, and they're fully reusable. And there's no bottling of milk, so it's very fast and efficient. And we've created, it attaches to the cloud, and what our cloud software does is it takes the regulatory burden off farmers. So that's a huge part of processing milk that we don't really hear a lot about, but it takes up a huge amount of time, and basically we just do it automatically. And the next step is how do you get your milk and sell it to customers, and we basically have the Happy Cow brand with all our values that we stand for, and the Happy Cow app that enables customers to find where the dispensers are in their local community and to pay for milk and to chat with their local farmers. So we've developed our milk dispenser, which is, it's modular, so it can fit in a supermarket, can go into a cafe, and you can even do a home delivery option. So you have Uber-style home delivery drivers, which is again local people delivering milk to their local suburb and people in their suburb. And that's kind of cool, but we won't launch with that model yet because there's a few moving parts there. And what the app does is it lets people discover the dispensers. It takes care of payment automatically, and when you buy a litre of milk, you know exactly who the farmer is, and if you've got questions, you ask the farmer. So instead of asking me or the Happy Cow team, you ask your local farmer, because no matter where you are in the world, there's different scenarios, there's different weather and climatic conditions and stresses and those sorts of things, so it's better to ask them. And if you don't like it, you tell them, and if enough people don't like it, the farmer will hopefully will change. And that's the model of Happy Cow, is that customers in I suppose a relationship with their local farmer where they communicate in a sort of a sense of trust. And this local supplying locals allows reusable packaging. So this is the thing we don't really think about. We think reusable packaging is about the packaging, but you can't really have reusable packaging unless you have local supply. And it doesn't really matter what the product is, if it's a plant-based milk or anything else, that you really need to be able to process it locally, to deliver locally, and have those empty packages come back, because it doesn't make sense to transport tanks down to Invercargill and then transport trucks of empty tanks all the way back to Christchurch. It's not actually that sustainable. So where we're at the moment, this is our test system, and it has been working in Saltworks, which is our co-working space. This is that black box there is our chiller unit, and this is our tank, and this is our prototype electronics that sit on top of it. And the model is that the tanks can sit in ambient temperature, so they can sit outdoors. They don't go into a fridge. We use that little ice chiller to circulate ice water around the tanks. The reason we do that is it means that you can put tanks and chillers in all sorts of configurations to suit cafes and retailers or people at farmers markets or whatever. Now we have, we call it provisional approval by MPI. We've had it inspected and we've pretty much got the green light, but the people that are meant to write the report to tell us we've got the green light haven't written the report. And now it's winter time in New Zealand, so all the milk factories are shut down and they get all their maintenance done, and little old Happy Cow milk is not on the priority of a lot of these people. They go to Fonterra and Synlait farm factories before us. So we will get it. So I'm pretty confident about that. We're not making any wild claims here. It's just a process of time, and hopefully we. Oh yes, and we've got some farmers all set up to supply us. One in the South Island here, and we all know Chris, if you've been following us, in the Waikato, who is champing at the bit to get going. but we can't give them stuff that's not going to work. And to make it work, we need to spend a bit more money. So we've got, this is our crazy team. Actually, really good team, like phenomenal. David has come on recently. He was hoping to join us tonight. He's basically an engineer. He's a product designer. He designs phenomenal stuff for companies all around the world. And his development of our technology has really taken off since he's arrived, because heck, I'm just a farmer. Chris has always been helping with our marketing and messaging and things like that right from the very start. And the chances are the reason you signed up to our newsletter was because of Chris. And we've got Regina, who has helped us again the whole time doing all our graphics. And Sam is like, we're so lucky to have bumped into Sam. He's like a full stack developer. He just has built this crazy system that is like, it would have cost probably hundreds of thousands of dollars if you took this to a software house. And, you know, we've been able to do it on far less than that. So we need to thank Sam a lot for that. And this is the power of working in a co-working space like Saltworks. So I am dragging on a little bit here, but this is what we basically do at Happy Cow. We find a farmer, we give them our milk factory in a box. We say to that farmer, go and find 10 to 15 resellers, take these dispensers to them and tell them how wonderful your milk is. And then between the farmer and us and the various marketing, we find 1,500 customers, and we call that our little mini milk community. And this can happen anywhere in the world. The farmer makes $1.40. The resellers, anyone selling milk, whether it's you go into a farmer's market, a cafe, or a supermarket, they get 50 cents, and then we get 50 cents. And the customers pay $2.80, which is including GST. So the point we're making there is this is affordable milk. We're not trying to sell super premium milk. We want everyone to be able to basically afford to have milk and reusable packaging from their local farmer. And that's basically, that's basically it. And this is a slide to show how everything's connected by the internet and their special databases in the cloud, and that all enables farmers to do their bit, enables resellers to do what they need to do, and enables customers to do what they need to do. This is really what our hub is going to look like for doing 1,000 litres a day. 1,000 litres a day is quite a lot of milk, but then again, it's enough milk for about maybe 60, 70 odd cows. And again, it's designed to load and unload tanks really quickly, wash them, fill them, pasteurize them really quick. At the moment, that's what it looks like. So it's nowhere near what we want it to look like, but we needed to build a box that just we could get through MPI, because the concept that we were going with is that a milk processor would be standing outside in the environment, which is a non-sanitary environment, controlling a pasteurizer inside a sanitary environment. So that's quite novel and hasn't really been done before. The other thing is all these tanks are little mini pasteurizers. Normally a pasteurizer is a big piece of equipment that stays in the factory. We're saying that pasteurizers actually go out into the field and are delivered everywhere. So again, that's quite novel. So we wanted to build something simple and cheap that was going to just confirm the concept, and we seem to be going, yeah, we're passed with flying colours. That's basically what we call our filler head, what the dispenser looks like, and that's in the cafe mode. So we wanted to make it modular so that any cafe could decide to use this, and they wouldn't have to tear up their whole bench and install under bench fridges and all those sorts of things. It'll retrofit into any sort of environment. So this is makes it easier for farmers to make the sale and get cafes and retailers and anyone using our Happy Cow milk. So that there is a quick overview of what Happy Cow is. So we see some comments here, so thank you very much. All right, we'll start with Michelle. So how do I do that? There we go. Michelle, what happens to the older cows at the end of their dairy days? That is a very good question. So a cow lives, well, the lifespan of an average dairy cow is about 5 to 6 years around the world. So she'll calve, she'll She'll give birth, so she'll calve for the first time at 2 years of age, and then she'll be milked for a year. She'll calve at 3, calve at 4, she'll calve at 5, so she probably has 4 calves, and then for whatever reason, the end of her, it comes to the end of her days. And that's, we kind of, to answer this question, you've got to kind of understand why they don't last that long. So there's, I think the biggest reason is that just don't get in calf when you want them to get in calf. So normally you need to, a farmer would like them to get into calf within a 4-week period, or 6 to 8 weeks at the max. And if they're not in calf at that point, it's actually more economic for her to go to the works than it is to be without milk or be a late calver. So what we want to do is, this is part of what we call removing the, taking the pressure off the farming system and trying to just not eke out every single dollar out of the system. And if we can pay farmers a bit more, then they can do that. Part of being 360-day supply, when you're supplying the public, you know, they want milk 365 days a year. You need cows calving all throughout the year. So what I did was, if she took a bit longer to get into calf, it didn't really matter. It just means she calved a little bit longer, a little bit later. So the idea is if you can do things like milk once a day, you don't walk them so far, you're not pushing them so hard, that they should live a lot longer. There are some stats. I mean, a cow can get into sort of 10 years of age. It's not common, but sort of not uncommon to have cows over 10 into New Zealand dairy herds. And I think the other thing that really causes a cow to will be culled is that she'll get what's called high somatic cells. So she basically, it's antibody cells in her udder. She's basically unable to fight off bacteria, and her milk becomes lower quality basically, and she gets mastitis easily. So the question is, what happens to older cows? Well, really, I think, quite frankly, they go to the works. And I get asked this question quite a bit. Why don't you let them live their natural life? And it's sort of interesting, like, what is a natural life? I know in India, no one wants to kill a cow because they're sacred. So we have these cows that are just, teeth fall out, they go lame, they've got all sorts of problems with them, and they sort of die a bit of a horrible death. So I suppose that's one extreme. The other extreme is, well, I mean, we just think about it with our pets. I mean, how many of our pets actually die of natural causes? I mean, put your comments down if you disagree with me, but you know, often you take something to the vet and the vet says, you know, it's probably most humane to put her down now. So that's kind of what happens with cows. So and I guess that's animal agriculture, and I don't think we at Happy Cow really want to hide that. And we just think that cows should have the best life possible and not suffer. Yeah, thanks for that, Michelle. I hope that answers your question. We've got Samantha saying it's all good on Facebook. That's good. And we've got Chris, our Waikato farmer, is in the house. Thank you. Is this being recorded to share later? Yes, we'll share it later. Most of our people watch these webinars afterwards. And Chris has got a comment here. We're responsible for our cows. There are no barriers to be, what? There are no barriers to be cow. I don't get that, Chris. All right, so we've got some questions from earlier in the week that came through, which really prompted me to do this. You guys can put any questions in the comments, and as I go along, we love hearing your questions. Okay, here's our first one. Can you please explain how you will manage the risk of people being responsible for the cleanliness of their own containers? We get this all the time. This is about people not washing their bottles properly, and maybe the milk going off, or in the worst case, people getting sick and then blaming Happy Cow for that. So I think that's a reputational risk. So what we do is, part of our risk management program is we are responsible for the milk right up to the end of the dispenser. So if you look at the dispenser there, it's actually, the milk is chilled right to the very end, right to the tip there. And what we do is part of our testing regime. Oh, hang on, I don't think I shared that. There. if you look, there's our milk dispenser, and basically right to the tip, there's cooling water that goes down there. So the milk is cooled right the way to the end. And what we do is do regular testing. So part of that testing is that it's tested, we take a sample from dispensers, and over time we basically validate the quality of the milk. And if someone gets sick or someone complains, we can look up exactly where the batch is. We can see which dispenser it was. We can look at historical records and see if there are any issues there. And we can also see, we know every customer that has bought that batch of milk, and we can see if we've got other complaints. The thing is I think as long as we can prove all that with some credibility, I think we can limit that. But there's always a risk that people are going to complain, and but I'm pretty confident that it's not going to be an issue. But Lord knows, people did not wash their bottles. I know it. I've been filling bottles up at farmers markets for 4 years, and it's horrendous. So we're going to we want to get away from glass milk bottles, and we want to develop a stainless steel container that will wash easily in a dishwasher, so that it removes that risk a little bit. We've got some comments here. Just coming back, Michelle coming back. Will the cows be euthanized humanely at the end of their life? Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So there's two ways it happens. Sometimes a cow will go into the paddock and she's, there's clearly something wrong. You'll call the vet and they might say, right, we're just going to euthanize her now. And you'll euthanize her in the paddock with an injection, and she doesn't feel a thing. The other one is you would say, okay, she's at the end of her useful days, and she'll go onto a truck to the freezing works, and they will, and they're regulated as well about how they do things. Yeah. Let's go on to Chris. We are responsible for our cows. We don't send any cows away. Hard to see cows die of old age or natural causes, but that's what happens here. Okay. Yep. And we've got, when do you expect to buy milk in Auckland? Well, as soon as we can give Chris a working hub, you'll have milk in Auckland. So we're expecting middle of next year, but I'll cover that shortly. Thanks, Samantha. Next one. Will you vet dairy farms to see if they treat their cows well and keep their calves? So this is a question about happy cow farmers that are using our system. Will we be making sure they are, doing things properly or doing it the happy cow way? There's two questions to this. I sort of think that, well, obviously we will, but everyone knows what we stand for, and farmers aren't going to jump on board if they don't believe what we believe. And a lot of farmers are going to dip their toes in the water, and they might not be doing everything 100% happy cow. And I think that's fine, and we'll be open and honest and tell everyone that. And I think we want our customers to sort of work with farmers. A lot of farmers don't quite understand what it's like to get messages every day from their customers telling them what they think. And we think that over time, farmers will basically adapt to what their customers want. So it's really up to their customers to keep communicating with the farmers, and the farmers to give good reasons why they do things or don't do things. But we will absolutely be keeping an eye on things. It would be horrendous if we see farmers doing terrible stuff and it basically comes back on me, and I've already gone broke once and I'm not doing that again. The cow and calf thing, look, I'll be honest, we have a lot of, that's the biggest thing that farmers will push back on. And what we're saying to farmers is, fine, it's our expectation that this is going to happen. We would like you to trial testing your selling your milk to your local community. Our customers are going to expect it. Just do what you've got now. Dip your toe in the water, have a go. We'll give you a hub and test it out with the view in mind that you will transfer your system to the happy cow model. So that's kind of how we're going to do it, and we're going to be quite open with those locals and how that farmer operates. And that's why we've enabled the communication within the app, because we want farmers to talk to their customers. Is the contribution to zero carbon through the refilling system, so no more plastic bottles, the local focus, no nationwide freight? Okay, I think that means, are we doing refilling locally rather than transporting empty containers up and down the country? So no, we don't want to be doing that. Local farmers supplying their locals. We expect, when we do our budgets, we sort of expecting it's going to be a 100-kilometre round trip. That's from the farm into town, do 3 deliveries and back to the farm. Obviously, that's not going to always be the case, and some farms will be bigger, they will be further away, but you know, the expectation is that you're not transporting milk from Wellington to Auckland and back again, and that sort of thing. Oh, let's hide that one. Are there any on-farm carbon reduction requirements for dairy farmers to use the Happy Cow system? Well, I think Lord knows the farmers are doing everything they can at the moment. It's a real hot topic in farming at the moment. But again, talking to Chris, what we're promoting in the Happy Cow model is basically a very basic pasture-based system, and you really shouldn't need to turn your tractor on very much. Where you have high carbon footprints with dairy farming is particularly around the world where they feed crops to cows. And there's a lot of tractor work involved, obviously all the cultivation of the crop, the harvesting of crop, transporting the crop to the dairy farm, and then you have to start a tractor to feed it out every single day. Whereas a pasture-based system, in most cases, the cow, or you cultivate the ground once, you plant grass, and then you don't plant anything for another 7 or 10 years. And you put a cow in there, and she harvests the milk, the grass herself, and she spreads her own effluent. And that's why New Zealand dairy farmers are quite have very low carbon footprints, or the lowest around the world. What we are looking at is basically we want to get farmers all around the world to be as pasture-based as possible, or to get away as much as possible from those crop systems. It's not that easy because New Zealand's kind of blessed with weather that lets us put cows outdoors most of the year. And even then, as you know, we have cows in mud during the winter in certain parts of the country. So even then, it's not quite possible. If you're in UK, it's not really feasible to have cows outside for much of the year. So that's what's a long-winded way of answering that question, but basically that's what our customers expect, and I think that's what we need to do. And I think it's clear from recent media coverage and things like that, you know, high carbon industries are not really going to, are not the future. So we think cows can be part of the future, and we're definitely going to do that. Next question, could a farmer provide both a company like Fonterra and use the Happy Cow local delivery system? Absolutely. The Dairy Industry Restructuring Act actually enables farmers to supply 20% of their milk to someone other than Fonterra. But then other milk companies we're talking to are quite happy for their farmer to sell a little bit of milk, or some of their milk, to Happy Cow as well. That's not this is going to be an issue as we expand around the world, as not all farmers are going to be, or not all milk companies are going to be as accommodating as they are in New Zealand. But we actually prefer if farmers also supply another company, especially particularly in these early days, as it reduces the risk for everyone. Who owns the technology, the equipment? Is it owned by Happy Cow and leased? Maintenance of machine maintenance implications. So the way Happy Cow makes money is we make money on every litre of milk sold. So we want to make our equipment as cheap as possible, so it goes into the hands of as many farmers as possible. And so we don't put a margin on anything. At the moment, the model is that we will sell the hardware to the farmer, and we will maintain it. So if it breaks down, they send it to us, or we send replacements. And the reason we want to do that is that we want to make sure we know what's breaking and why it's breaking, so we can make it better. But the hardware is not the product for us. The hardware just enables the farmer to sell milk, and we make our money on milk. So we have another question here from Matthew. Oh, hang on, I've got to turn that off. Can't work my technology. So Matthew, will you be allowing A2 milk to be sold, obviously at a premium? Well, we'll let farmers sell whatever they want, honestly. I mean, if farmers want to be organic, it's sort of like it's a Chris Falconer powered by Happy Cow. It's Matthew powered by Happy Cow. It's I'm an A2 farmer. I've got A2 milk, and we use the Happy Cow system. That's how we sort of look at it. So if a farmer wants to be A2 and they want to promote themselves as that, that's good. They can be organic, they can be regenerative, they can do what they like, as long as they sort of meet our standards of not being, terrible farmers, I suppose. And, the customers are going to be the ones who decide whether they like or if they're getting what they want. And and again, when you say here, obviously at a premium, well, I don't buy into this at a premium thing. That's a producer sort of language where everyone's trying to get more money. And the way I think of it is we need to make milk affordable. Milk's it's just a staple at the end of the day. It's milk. It's not a champagne or anything like that. And 70% of people in New Zealand buy the budget milk, and only 5% of people buy premium milk. So I don't really want to encourage premiums. We haven't really discussed how we're going to do this, because some farmers will want to, and we've got to figure out how we're going to deal with that. But the basic premise of Happy Cow is just let's get milk into the hands of as many people as we can. And I think at $2.80, we're not the cheapest milk. We're not budget milk by any stretch. We're still $1 more expensive, but we're not the expensive milk either. And Chris, we are in the front of expectations on carbon. We do this by responding to water quality, soil conservation, habitat, and biodiversity imperatives. Carbon is always the winner. Yeah, we could do a whole podcast on this actually, and we will. But thanks, Chris. Danny, thanks, Danny. What have you done in the last round of crowdfunding? Any return on that investment? What is the next round of funding going to be used for? Okay, well, we have built a hub. We have built a mini pasteurizer that is able to actually be manufactured. We've built the cloud architecture. We've built the app, the farmer app, the customer app, and the reseller app that enables it to happen. And we've basically just about got it through MPI. So we had hoped to get to this point and actually have the system operating in 1 or 2 cafes in Christchurch when we crowdfunded. And we're kind of just waiting on MPI, which is just the way it is. So I think when you look at what we've built with $400,000, I'm more than comfortable with what we've done, and I think we've been pretty frugal with that. The investment memorandum's coming out again next week, but basically we're valuing the shares at $3 a share. So at the first crowdfund, they were $1 a share. So we sort of we think you have increased your value by 3, and I think I can justify that valuation. Considering what we've built. So the next round of crowdfunding is basically we need to pile on a full-time software developer, and we need to pay David, our engineer, to come on board, because once we get this working, lots of little things are going to go wrong, and we need to spend basically 3 months, 4 months fixing all those sorts of things. In November, we're going to order our more tanks from China, and these are going to be our big main tanks, and we're going to completely rebuild our hub from the prototype we're using to the proper one. And at that point, we're going to scale up in Christchurch and then send equipment up to Chris. And basically, the model is to run those two farms for about 6 months to a year, and then we're going to raise even more money again. But the IM, probably we'll do another webinar with we'll go through the IM step by step. So I hope that answers your questions. And Samantha, what percentage of existing dairy farms do you expect will convert to your system in New Zealand? Well, 97% of the milk in New Zealand is exported. So 3% of New Zealand dairy farms basically supply 100% of New Zealand's milk. So, we don't need a lot. For instance, if you take Chris's farm in the Waikato with around 400 cows or 300 odd cows, he would supply 1 to 2% of the Auckland market. And I think we expect to basically get around 5% max of any sort of market. So it's going to differ. New Zealand hasn't got much population, so we don't expect New Zealand to be a huge earner for us. We could build a really good business here in New Zealand, but we're not here to, we're here more to make a difference in the world of dairy than to make lots of money, although I would like to. So I think if we've got 30 or 40 farmers with 100 cows each, I think I'd be quite happy with that in New Zealand, and that would be quite a good chunk of the market share. We'd probably have more market. That would be about 5 to 6% of New Zealand market, which is actually a very big business. Because if you think of how much Lewis Road Creamery is worth, and they only have a fraction of the New Zealand market. I hope that was clear. Hit me up if it's not. Next question. Who will be liable if something goes wrong, e.g. malfunction causes food poisoning? Well, ultimately, it's the Happy Cow system, and it's our risk management program that has been running, and it's under our name. So we're responsible, absolutely. And that's kind of why, I suppose, we're dealing with food safety here. We're dealing with regulation. So, if we were dealing in any other sort of product, we could probably have well and truly been in the market 6 months ago. And the risk is too great to get it wrong. So I feel very frustrated that it's taking quite a long time. I'm more optimistic. I thought we'd been going a lot quicker, but like the risk of getting people sick is it's not worth it. The risk of putting our equipment in the hands of a farmer and then it breaks down, or you get internet connectivity issues, or the app stops working, all those little things could ruin things. So that's why we're taking this relatively conservative approach. But basically, I'm definitely the one who's in the gun if it doesn't work, and I'm the one who has to answer to the Ministry for Primary Industries. And our systems have to show that we are in control of every farmer, every tank, every dispenser in every part of the country. So that's kind of why we have built what we've built, because that's actually quite hard to do. Do you have a patent protection on your technology? We do. We have an international patent pending, and part of the crowdfunding funds will go to finalising that patent. And it's a patent. I won't say, but it's quite a clever patent. We think it's got some value. The patents are difficult because only basically 1% of patents filed are ever actually used, and over the course of 20 years, a patent will cost $1 million to maintain, and then you still have to decide if you're going to defend it if someone decides to challenge your patent. So we've put, they're expensive. I felt really bad writing those checks to pay the lawyers for that, but it's the sort of thing you do if you're going to be if you've got big plans, and we certainly do. Is your upcoming crowdfunding to cover the engineer coming on board and the next stage of development before your launch next year? So basically, yes, it is. It's to pay for some wages to get engineers to make sure that we can get all this stuff working reliably. It's also to keep developing the app, because it's in very basic function at the moment. It's also to buy stainless steel tanks, because basically that's our biggest cost. Chris is going to need about 60 tanks, and they're $1,500 a tank. So we need to buy all those, send them up to Chris. We need about 60 tanks here in Christchurch as well to run our in-house model. And that just takes a bit of money. So that's what the crowdfunding will be for. And the expectation is we'll be crowdfunding again in another 18 months. And by that stage, we'll have a fully working system. It's just ready to go. In fact, we've got a farmer in the US who's just as anxious to get our equipment over. So we'll probably send him some equipment next year as well. So we will have 3 farms operating, two in New Zealand and one in the US and Southern California. Next question, do the cows and calves and the Happy Cow partner farms get to live their full lives? We've kind of answered that a little bit, but the cow and calf policy is sort of what we do here. We kind of, and the reason for that is, you know, a lot of people think dairy is terrible, and, you know, sometimes dairy is terrible and dairy is done badly in a lot of parts of the world. And I think I want to show that, you know, you can do it really well. And to do it well, you have to have impeccable animal welfare. And I just can't really stand in front of an urban consumer, a mother, I suppose, who's got a baby in her arms, and just say that removing a calf from his mother at day 1 is a justifiable action. And that's why we take the stance. And the other thing is, people really like it, and people really want it, and it's a value that they really stand for. And I think this is how, you know, we change dairy a little bit to becoming, you know, not seen as this horrible, cruel industry. So animal agriculture is going to come under a lot more pressure, and yeah, I don't want to be. I just don't want to be part of an industry that's not getting better. I think we should be the solution rather than the cause. It makes the phone ring. It gets lots of attention too. So there's a marketing aspect of the cow and calf thing that we can't deny either. How are the farmers able to support increased costs associated with humane dairy? Well, basically, I think if you caught me at the start of the webinar, it was we'll be giving the farmers about 120% increase in revenue. So we're expecting that they should be able to make up the difference through that. And to be honest, the farmers that are ringing us up are doing this anyway. They're doing it under the existing payout. So if you talk to Chris, he probably isn't going to do anything different, really, to be honest. And he's making it work at 60 cents a litre. So I don't know, it's not buy him a beach house or something. What it takes to start a compassionate dairy system in the US market? Well, we basically have to get we have to take the approval that we have in New Zealand with our food safety regulators and get that approved in the US, and then we basically do the same system that we're doing here in New Zealand. Find US farmers, give them the equipment, help them find 10 to 15 resellers, and get 1,500 households, and then you're selling 1,000 litres a day. And I think, yeah, boy, we could talk all night about that product, that question though. But how long have we been going for? We are dragging on a little. I will talk all night, but I'm aware that you guys might get bored. So I can talk about Happy Cow all night. What are some of the challenges you faced in New Zealand to establish such a system? Well, I went broke. That was a challenge. My wife left me, and I worked really, really hard. Basically, yeah, well, that. But basically, it's about inefficiency. Everything's about efficiency. You can pasteurize milk. You can sell milk in a dispenser already. Those things already exist. The problem is, how do you do it efficiently? And I just heard of a local farmer who was using some of my old equipment. I think he's closing up as well because he couldn't get efficient. And there's 2 ways of getting efficient. You either have $3 or $4 million at the start and you build a really, really fantastic state-of-the-art milk processing facility, and then you have a chance of being efficient, or you do something different, which is kind of what we're doing, because we don't think you should be a millionaire to be able to sell milk to your locals, since milk's been around for forever and pasteurization was invented 150 years ago. So that's the challenge, is how do we make farmers efficient? And it's about reducing the workload. So we don't want them bottling milk. We don't want them faffing around with hair nets and white overalls and boot exchanges and factories and cleaning and all that sort of stuff. We've built this hub to be really, really quick. Can you please describe how it works with calves with their mothers? Well, okay. So a calf is born. It takes about 10 minutes to stand up, and then it starts feeding. Mum licks it, and then I'll probably run over before the farmer should go over before the calf gets too lively, and put a tag in its ear so we know who it belongs to. And that's about it. We'll leave it with its mum for the next 8 to 10 weeks, where it will eat grass, drink from mum, follow mum around, and then it'll get to that stage where it's ready to be weaned or it doesn't need milk anymore, at which stage we will pop the cow and the calf into a separate paddock next to each other, and they can basically still touch each other, still meet each other at the fence. And what the studies have shown is it takes about a week for them to decide to go their own ways. Basically what happens is the first day they sort of meet up all day or a couple of times a day. The cow will walk off to eat or get milked or drink and then come back to the calf. And over about the course of 5 days, they just go less and less and less, and they go their own way. So what we're trying to do with this cow and calf thing is we want to enable the separation without the heartache. You know, when you take a calf from its mum at day one and the cow's running after its calf, that's not really a good look, and we don't think it's good for the cow. The calf probably, to be honest, gets really well fed on a typical dairy farm, so the calf probably doesn't worry as much, but it's really for the cows, and I think happy cows is something worth having. So the idea is how to remove that cow and calf, get them to grow up, go their separate ways as they naturally would in nature, which is the whole principle of, if you're going to do animal agriculture, I think your animals should live as much of a natural life as they would. And okay, here we have Caitlyn. What is the minimum dollar value to invest? So we're going to release that next week, but it's $102. So that will buy you however many shares that is. Yeah, so $102 is the minimum amount, and obviously you can invest as much as you like. So we have, Happy Cow has a really, really long tail. We have a lot of those smaller shareholders, far more than most other equity crowd funds, and that, I think we think that that's a lot of our people who really care about what we do, but they're not, you know, they're not loaded, you know, and they we think we sort of work really hard to keep it as low as possible because we want anyone to be able to access it, and we appreciate those $100 investments as much as any. So, but again, way more detail. I'll do another webinar specifically on the crowdfunding next week. Oh, we got even more questions. There is a lot different system, as I know. You can graze whole year. Is it true? Because here we only have 6 months of vegetation, and the rest we have to have them in a barn. How do you think? Or how you think you? Ah, so this is from a cheesemaker in Slovakia, I think, or Slovenia, who's been in touch with us for the last couple of years. So basically, what he's saying is they can only graze their cows outside for 6 months. And he's wondering about the cow and calf system, how we would do it inside a barn. And I think, they're doing it in Europe inside barns, so I wouldn't think there's a problem. But it's all up to farmers to make it work, I would say. And we are at our last question. For how long do calves stay with their mothers? So yeah, that's about 8 to 10 weeks. A typical dairy farmer will do 8 to 10 weeks. Or 8 weeks in New Zealand. It's more a weight, actually. You want to wait until a calf gets to a certain weight before you wean it, and it's roughly around that time frame. And the thing is, some of the things you've got to be aware of is if you've got a bull calf, it'll they go through puberty at about 6 months, and then they start mating everyone. So it becomes a bit of an issue if you leave them in there a bit longer. So those are my final questions. I think that's the last question. If you've got any more, feel free to ask them. We really appreciate all your support and hanging in there. I'm just aware that, we've been, we haven't seen a cow in a couple of years, and we've been talking about this development, and I know it's sort of dragging on, and I thank you for all your patience and that you'll keep hanging in there. But we are building something that's pretty special. There's nothing really like this. What we're really doing is enabling farmers to process milk and not have to deal with the food regulators, and to do it really efficiently. And I think people will, once you see us in action and we see it in the in the supermarkets and you see it in the schools and you see people actually using it, I think the rest of the world's going to sort of click and go, oh, I get what they're doing. I get it now. But you guys obviously get it, and we appreciate it, and don't take it for granted. So if you've got any questions, always feel free to just email me, Glen at Happy Cow Milk. I like getting all your feedback. It lets me know what I'm not saying or what I need to say and what I'm forgetting to say. And we really need the crowd in this crowdfund to keep us going. We will always keep going. We're not going to die if we don't get the money we need, but it'd be so much easier if we could get what we need. And I don't take it for granted. I don't take for granted that the crowd will always stump up, but they always seem to. So, but I never take it for granted. So I'm assuming the worst. I'm assuming we're going to have to go to plan B and plan C to keep going. But I would be surprised if we have to do that. But we've got a plan B and a plan C, and we've got contingency plans in place. And I think once we're in market, I think we won't have any trouble getting investment. Last thing I will say is that crowdfunding is always going to be the funding option of Happy Cow. We're going to rely on our crowd. At the moment, we're relying on the crowd in New Zealand because that's the regulatory framework we operate in, but there's crowdfunding enabled in the US and the UK and Europe. And we've had lawyers briefly look at that, of how we're going to access global crowdfunding. And what we really want to be able to do is when we go to the market, we basically access, we'll do a crowdfund, but it'll actually be done in 3 or 4 different jurisdictions at the same time. And there's quite an admin cost to that. So that's why we're not doing it at this stage, because we just need to get into market and get selling milk. But the idea is that when we always get our capital from people who are our crowd and get what we do. We have talked to venture capitalists and professional investors, and I think they're very nice people and things, and I think they mean well, but I don't think they're a good fit for us. So that's where we sit and where our plans are for the future. So thank you. I will leave you there. Enjoy the rest of your night. Thanks for joining in, and as always, I love hearing from you. And we'll have a webinar next week where we'll walk through the investment memorandum page by page and all the gory details. So thank you very much.